Welcome, fellow Lions fans. What a huge win over the Packers last Thursday night, giving us a 12-1 record and keeping us in position for the number one seed. Everybody was in the festive holiday spirit, including the Grinch, who was at the game dancing and grinding with the Lions cheerleaders. For those of you who haven't watched the video yet, it is fabulous. And let me tell you, the Grinch's heart wasn't his only body part that grew 3 sizes that day. Also in the holiday spirit was Dan Campbell, who's delivering fourth down presents throughout the night to all us nice boys and girls. His most shocking fourth down decision was at the end of the game when, for the first time in recorded NFL history, he went for it on fourth down from inside the opponent's 30-yard line with the score tied in the final minute of regulation. What could he have been thinking? Well, maybe he was inspired by that happy dancing Grinch. Maybe Christmas, Dan thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means going for it on fourth downs a little bit more. So what happened then? Well, in Detroit they say that Dan Campbell's testicles grew 3 sizes that day, crushing the Packer hopes along the way. And then the true meaning of Christmas came through, and Dan Campbell found the strength of 10 wins plus 2. Welcome Christmas, bring your cheer. Cheer to all Lions fans, far and near. Christmas Day will always be, just as long as we have FTP. This is the Detroit Lions Podcast, Medical Edition. I'm Dr. Liao, University of Michigan Medical School grad, board certified in family medicine, lifelong Lions fan. I'm recording this on December 11th, Wednesday. Thankfully, the Grinch did not steal all of our players last week, as it was a healthy game for us. The main concern and mystery coming out of the game was Alim McNeill. But before I get to the curious case of Alim, I want to update some topics I didn't have a chance to get to over the past couple weeks. Jameson Williams a few weeks ago was in his car with a gun without a CPL, that's a concealed pistol license. The officers at the time didn't charge him, and then upon further review, also didn't charge him, so thankfully that issue is put to rest. As far as him owning a gun, I got zero issue with anybody owning a gun for self-defense, especially with what's happened in this country over the past few years. In some areas of this country, there's no guarantee anybody's coming to help you. I live near Portland, and people regularly report being on hold for 5 to 15 minutes when calling 911, with some even on hold for 45 minutes. I was able to obtain an actual copy of a recording of someone calling 911 in Portland, so I'll play that for you here.
Attention, whoever you are, this channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
No fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
Now, if you're a single guy who's fast enough to outrun a bullet like JMO, then you probably should be running away instead of trying to get in a shootout. But once you have a family and kids, you realize that you can't necessarily run away anymore. You might need to neutralize a threat. Hopefully JMO's being a safe, responsible gun owner, muzzle control, finger off the trigger, stay away from trouble, all that. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, as half you guys listening in Michigan are hunters who are very comfortable and safe with guns. I grew up eating venison. I've bagged a couple deer myself. Having a CPL, it's not necessarily representative of if you're safe with a gun or not. It's more of a legal technicality, but you gotta follow the law, and it's a good, responsible thing to get. I'd assume JMO has gotten a CPL by now, so there shouldn't be any more issues like this in the future. In other JMO off-the-field news, he was seen on a social media video in early December buying a Patek Philippe watch, which I guess is in the range of $200,000. Maybe he got it on a Black Friday sale for like half off though. Regardless, I don't judge how anybody spends their money. If Joe Burrow wants to spend $3 million on a Batmobile, hell yeah, go for it. If I made $50 million a year, I'd buy a Batmobile too. My only hope is that JMO's being smart with his spending so he doesn't end up on the sequel to the Netflix show Get Smart with Money. I was watching that over the summer with my kid. The show features people who made poor money decisions and now are educating themselves on how to manage their money properly. And you'll never guess who is featured on the show. Our former second-round pick, Teez Tabor. Teez was talking about the dumb money decisions he made as a rookie, including immediately going out and buying houses, vacations, and spending $60,000 on custom chains. After becoming a bust and not getting any more big NFL money, he talked about how he regrets a lot of his decisions and has changed his money management for the better. Big kudos to Teez for going on the show and acknowledging that he was not smart about money management and then educating himself about it. Good for him, because we all make mistakes. Unfortunately, some have to learn the hard way. Nobody teaches you about money management in school or college or anywhere growing up, so it's not something that you're naturally going to learn unless it's from a family member or a close friend. Ideally, you learn it from other people's mistakes so you don't have to make your own. So hopefully NFL players can learn from Teez's mistakes. Jameson is on his rookie deal, which is 4 years, $17.4 million fully guaranteed. He's also not a bust, so he should get another big contract, but you never know. Injuries can happen. He's already got 2 suspensions, one for the performance-enhancing substances and the other for gambling. In good news, JMO does have more money than expected, though, because he was not fined for his perfect pass into Tyreek Stevenson's face. Tyreek, on the other hand, was fined $20,000 for it, though. Good job by the NFL for finding the instigator here. Speaking of fines that were avoided, Brian Branch, shockingly to me, avoided a fine for his hit in the Colts game a couple weeks ago that drew a personal foul penalty. I have the slow-mo vid on my X timeline so you guys can judge that for yourself. On that play, Branch tries to hit with his shoulder, but his helmet does lead and hit first. It maybe barely grazes the Colts helmet, but mainly lands on the shoulder. The Colts receiver was not defenseless as he had taken multiple steps. He was also hunched over a little bit. We all know Branch is a really hard hitter that likes to bang guys with his shoulder. That's how he broke Anzalone's forearm. The problem when you try to lead with the shoulder is the head is invariably in the way. Now, some players like Tyreek Stevenson have their head stuck up their ass, but most still have their head attached to their shoulders, which makes it virtually impossible to hit with the shoulder without inadvertently leading with the head. Now, by not finding him, the NFL is basically saying that the hit was okay. This is great news. This would have been at least the 3rd fine that I can recall this year. First one this year was versus the Cardinals, where he got a concussion. Both he and Trey McBride got concussions and went low on that play. He also got one against the Packers when he got ejected. I was worried that any more fines would put him at risk for a suspension, but I think we're safe for now. He still needs to try to avoid any more questionable hits for a while, as the NFL clearly has him on some kind of a watch list, similar to Ndamukong Suh back in the day. I think Branch needs to adjust his technique for a little while, at least the rest of the season, to get off of this secret probationary period. Instead of leading with the head or the shoulder, he should try to at least extend his arms out so his hands hit first and the optics just look better. The other thing he can do is let guys run into his chest. Now, watching him the past 2 games since that Colts game, it looks like he's done a pretty good job adjusting his technique. Now, let's get to the injuries. We'll start with the Packers game recap, then we'll do the weekly IR list status update, and we'll finish up with the initial Wednesday Bills-Lions injury report. So let's do the Packers recap first. If you like to read about it and watch the injury videos, check out my post-game report article on Lions Wire. So we'll do this in chronological order. Amon-Ra, in the very first minute of the game, got up reaching for his left lower back. Looking closely at the video, it looked like he took a face mask to that area. Simple contusion. The very next play, he made a reception and looked fine the rest of the game. No concerns, and he's not on the injury report today. Alim McNeill is the big concern and mystery coming out of this game. Here's the timeline for him. At the 7-minute mark of the first quarter, he went down and left the game. Video was obscured, but he may have taken a mild hit to the back of the head when Jamal Adams jumped on him towards the end of the play. I reviewed all his previous plays and didn't see anything concerning. He was taken to the locker room, passed the concussion evaluation because he was allowed to return to play in the first half. However, he did not come out of the locker room at halftime, was officially ruled out with a head, not a concussion. Then on Monday, a couple of days ago, Dan Campbell stated that he was in fact in the protocol, which implies that he got a concussion diagnosis at some point. Now let's look at some of his past medical history. Last year, Thanksgiving, November the 23rd, he took a blow to the right jaw area. He was lying face down on the ground for a while and left the game temporarily, and he did finish the game though. Now, it was suspicious for a concussion with how long he was down, but there was no concussion diagnosis. November the 10th of this year, about 4 weeks ago, definite right TMJ symptoms. TMJ is the temporal mandibular joint. That's the joint that allows your jaw to open up, allows your jaw to go up and down. It's a joint just like any other joint. It can be sprained. You can have cartilage damage there. You can have chronic recurring issues with that joint. In that game on November the 10th, he was moving his jaw around, clearly uncomfortable with it, and palpating directly at that TMJ spot. There was no concussion diagnosis then. So here's my analysis of everything. McNeill had a delayed concussion diagnosis last game. That's not unusual for a concussion diagnosis to be delayed, and it does not represent any kind of mistake or oversight by the medical team or the player. Unless the concussion is obvious, like loss of consciousness, fencing, or obvious mental confusion, the doctor can't just slap a concussion diagnosis because there are implications with that kind of diagnosis. It's sort of like a criminal trial. You want to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody's guilty before slapping them with a guilty verdict. It can be hard to definitively say symptoms are due to a concussion if they're vague, such as a headache, fogginess, nausea, and these kind of symptoms can be attributed to other causes as well. There are many things that can cause those kind of symptoms, including all sorts of headache issues like a migraine, cluster headache, tension headaches. Those things can be debilitating and make it unable for you to play football. If there was any kind of pain in the jaw area, the most likely cause for Alim would have been TMJ since he just had that 4 weeks ago. Other things can cause jaw pain though, such as dental cavities, muscle clenching, sinus infections, a salivary gland issue, trigeminal neuralgia, which is a nerve pain issue. Post-herpetic neuralgia, this is pain following a rash caused by herpes. This is not genital herpes. There are dozens, maybe even hundreds of different kinds of herpes. Herpes can cause chickenpox, shingles, and cold sores, which most of us in this world have. Other more serious issues that can cause jaw pain: cancer, systemic issues like lupus, Sjogren's syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis. I'm sure Alim's already had a full evaluation to rule out anything serious. So when the medical team evaluated him in the locker room, they didn't find any obvious concussion symptoms, and whatever symptoms he had, they were thought to be caused by something other than a concussion. Then at some point later, either more concussion-type symptoms showed up, or medical decided that the symptoms he had were in fact likely to be due to a concussion. Now, it's important to note that this concussion diagnosis does not rule out a concurrent head or jaw issue though, since medical thought there was something else going on at first and he was officially listed with a head. They thought there was something going on that wasn't a concussion. His symptoms could be a combination of a concussion and a TMJ or other head issue. It could be a multifactorial issue. Moving on now to Kevin Zeitler, who left the game briefly with a left eye irritation. Notably, Christian Mahogany came in and played the 3 snaps that he was out. This was surprising to see him. Mahogany missed all of training camp with mono and the first half of the season due to it, so I really wasn't expecting him to do much at all this year, but he's already elevated himself to being the primary offensive guard backup, which is really good news for us going forward into next year. Zeitler is an unrestricted free agent. He might not be back, and the ideal situation is if Christian Mahogany can be a starting offensive guard on his rookie contract. Next is Brian Branch, who went down the third quarter with a right hip or oblique issue, played through that. Then late in the game, he had some calf cramping in both left and right calves. He's not on the injury report today, so he is fine. Kirby Joseph, late in the game, about the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter, was hanging his left arm. It looked like he might have gotten it trapped and tugged on, maybe a mild elbow or shoulder sprain. He's not on the injury report, so he's good. All right, now let's do our weekly injured reserve status update. The guys who are returning soon: Alex Anzalone, left forearm fracture; Expect him back around week 17 or 18. I'd probably target week 18 against Minnesota. Khalif Raymond, left foot. Expect him by the start of the playoffs. He might even be back at the regular season as well. Uncertain returns. Enes Rakestraw with his hamstring, eligible to return December the 22nd. Ifatu Melifonwu, left finger. He's eligible to return December 22nd. Jalen Reeves-Maybin with his neck. He's eligible to return any time now, but has not had this 21-day practice window open yet. This implies he's at least 3 weeks away. And Dan Campbell, a couple days ago, corroborated this, saying he's better, and there's a chance we could get him in a few weeks. This is a reassuring update that it's not anything overly serious. With the neck, you're always worried about some kind of nerve or spinal issue. Late playoff return at best. Aiden Hutchinson with his left fib. I'm expecting a very limited return in the Super Bowl, although Jay Glazer this past Sunday reported that the NFC Championship game is a possibility. He's still not walking normally yet. I'm talking about Hutchinson, not Glazer. So his return is going to depend a lot on how quickly he can recover. John Kominski with his MCL surgery, initial estimate was January return at best. Derek Barnes, right MCL and PCL surgery, unlikely to be back. The guy's not expected to return at all. Malcolm Rodriguez, ACL. Marcus Davenport, left elbow. Kyle Pecco, left pec rupture. And Mekhi Wingo with an unspecified right knee injury. All right, now let's get to the initial injury report on this Wednesday. Alim McNeill, great news with an FP full practice. This was a mild surprise to me. I was expecting an LP at best. An FP means he's already passed through multiple stages of the concussion protocol, and he's firmly on track to play unless there's some kind of setback, which would be very unlikely at this point. Just a review here of concussion history data for the Lions. In this year, Alex Anzalone and Brian Branch had concussions. Both missed one game. Technically, Branch missed his game due to an illness, but his concussion may have played at least a small part in that. Last year, 2023, no official concussions during the season, which is pretty remarkable. Panay had one in training camp. In 2022, Amon-Ra, Brock Wright, Deshaun Elliott, and Kirby Joseph all returned in 1 week without missing a game following their concussions. Jonah Jackson and Jeff Okudah missed the short week Thanksgiving game with concussions. So overall, based on recent history, it's sort of a toss-up whether a player is going to be back within 1 week from a concussion. Next on the injury report, Taylor Decker with a suspected right MCL and right high or medial ankle sprain with an FP today. Great news. Decker's already missed 2 games with this. The FP means he's going to play this weekend. DJ Reader, NP, no practice. He hurt his left shoulder on Thanksgiving. The video was suspicious for a left shoulder subluxation. He's already missed 1 game with this. A subluxation is a partial transient dislocation of the shoulder. This injury can be rehabbed without surgery, but it can take multiple weeks. For reference, Deshaun Elliott a couple years ago with the Lions missed 2 games with a shoulder subluxation dislocation issue. With the NP today, I'm expecting Reader to miss another game, but decent chance he'll be back after that. Levi Onwuzurike with a LP today with a hamstring. He hurt himself on Thanksgiving and missed 1 game with this. Since hamstrings can get aggravated very easily, a gradual ramp up is what you want. The LP early in the week is a really good sign that he is on track. He's already on that ramp and he's getting close to return. There's a good chance he will play on Sunday. Josh Pascal with an LP hurt his right knee on Thanksgiving. He missed 1 game with this. Video didn't show anything too concerning. Maybe a mild bone bruise, maybe a mild knee sprain, but the LP gives him a decent chance to play this weekend. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills injury report. They like to list almost everybody on the team, but almost everybody on the report has an FP, so they're fine. So let's stick to the notables. Rasul Douglas, cornerback, starting cornerback with a knee issue, NP today. He hurt this knee last game. It was a left knee injury. Video was obscured, but it looked to me a mild MCL sprain. If that's the case, Good chance he's going to miss a game at least. Taylor Rapp with an NP with a neck shoulder. He hurt his neck 2 weeks ago, but he was still able to play every snap last game, which suggests pretty good chance he'll play against us. Casey Toohill, defensive end with a ribs with an LP. He's a backup defensive end who plays about 25% of snaps. A couple notable pass catchers will be returning. Dalton Kincaid, tight end, has missed 3 games with a PCL. He's a FP today, which means he'll be in. He's got 34 receptions for 356 yards so far this year. Keon Coleman, their second-round rookie, he's missed the last 4 games with a wrist issue. He had an FP today. That means he'll be in on Sunday. He's got 22 catches for 417 yards this year. A couple guys they are bringing back off of IR. Dwayne Smoot, defensive end, missed the last 4 games on IR with wrist surgery. He's eligible to return on Sunday. It's hard to predict with these guys coming off IR in that very first week after 4 weeks because they might not need their full 21-day practice window. He had an FP today. He typically plays about 50% of snaps, so he's a fairly important player for them. Balen Spector, linebacker, has a calf. He missed the last 4 games on IR, so he's in a similar situation as Smoot, eligible to return on Sunday. Hard to predict whether he will, since he doesn't necessarily need his 21-day practice window. He's started multiple games this year at linebacker for them. All right, that's it for today. Enjoy the big Super Bowl preview on Sunday. Talk to you next time.